afternoon. Lens is all messed up. Welcome back. How's everyone doing? Miles here. If you caught my last two videos, I did covers of the new Slipknot single as well as a song from Green Day called Letter Bomb. And I was going to have a video on basically like a pseudo lesson on how to play the new Slipknot tune, but everything that I recorded I kind of hated, so I decided not to put it out. Hopefully next week I'll have something out for you to kind of make up for it not being out today. But we'll see. We'll see what the week holds. It's been a crazy week. For today, I kind of want to address a series of things that I've been asked about in the past from students, from parents, from other musicians, anyone who's looking to get into playing music, just in general, things they can do to help improve their, just everything. Overall improvement of their ability, their approach, their attitude, all of it. So today I want to offer you a list of 10 tips on how to music better. So let's just get into it. Now, not all of these tips are going to be geared towards solely just guitar players. Some of them have to do more with just generally as a person approaching playing music. So just bear that in mind. So tip number 1, learn how to use a tuner. This seems like kind of a no-brainer, but in reality, there's actually a series of different kinds of tuners that are available on the market. Not just snarks, not just tuners that run through from your guitar to an amplifier. You have ones that are also metronomes, ones that are a standalone tuner that you only plug one cable into, things of that nature. And even how they display where you need to adjust your pitch from being sharp or flat in order to get to the ideal pitch that you're shooting for. It's also worth knowing how to read the display on your tuner to know that you're in the right pitch overall. If your tuner is not set to A440, in most cases you're going to be tuning to the completely wrong notes. There's some instances where you're going to be wanting to change that parameter to a different number, like 432, and that's a subject for a whole other video. Good Lord. But there's also tuners out there that specify whether or not you're tuning for a guitar, for a bass, for a violin, or chromatic. So if you have a clip-on tuner, you may see that you have symbols like C, B, G, and V, and that's what all of those stand for. And they all are specified for specific notes, excluding chromatic. That's all the notes. I'd say my recommendation would be go with the chromatic setting, because then you have all the notes. And if you're tuning your guitar or your bass to E flat standard, you'll be able to find a note now. It won't just be looking for the regular standard tune 6 pitches that are in standard tuning. So learn how to use a tuner. In addition to that, also learn how to actually use a tuner in terms of testing the strings on your instrument. If you're going to town tremolo picking on your guitar strings and you're trying to get a reading on your tuner, you're not going to get much of anything from it. The proper way to go about it would be just to maintain a sustained note each time so that the tuner gets a good read from it. If you're dealing with a clip-on tuner, the way that it works, it's getting the frequencies of vibration from the instrument itself when you pluck the string. The entire instrument, when you pluck a string, vibrates. That's how a clip-on tuner works. That's why you can use a clip-on tuner in a somewhat noisy room. But it's still good to know how to use all kinds of tuners, because what if that clip-on tuner of yours, its tiny battery runs out? Something to think about. Tip number 2. Learn how to change your own strings. Now, this is focusing primarily on guitar and bass, but in general with most stringed instruments, it's good to know how to do it yourself. Obviously, you can go to someone else, you can go to a music store and they'll put strings on your instrument for you. But in the case of trying to conserve your funds, it might be beneficial to learn how to do this stuff yourself. Plus, when you bring your instrument to a store, there's usually a waiting list where you gotta wait for the other instruments that have already been checked in to be seen for repairs, setups, whatever. And who knows when you're going to get your guitar or your bass back. So if you know how to do this stuff yourself, you can get it done when it needs to be done in that moment. Now, it's also important that you do string changes the right way. You don't want to take the entire length of the string in most cases and wrap it around the tuning peg, because then you're just going to have this collection of string wrapped around the tuning peg, and it's going to affect your ability to have a sustained tuning on every individual string. Plus, it's just going to look messy. In most cases, usually you would feed the string through a tuning peg and you would tighten it up to tension, cut the excess string off, and you're good to go. But in the case of bass, sometimes you have a tuning peg that has a slit with a hole inside it where you would feed the string in there and you would wrap the rest of the string around the tuning peg from there. In some more modern locking tuners now, they only require you to wrap the string around like once around the tuning peg, and then it gets pushed down into locking position. If you don't have locking tuners and you wrap it around once, you run the risk of the string slipping out from the slit in the tuning peg, and then you can't feed it back through there again because there's just not enough string to get through. So, be mindful. It's also helpful to know what kind of strings are being put on your instrument in terms of the gauges and just the general spectrum of tension that's being put across the neck of your instrument. On my Telecaster, I use a set of strings that are skinny top and heavy bottom, which means that the low E, A, and D strings are of a thicker gauge compared to the G, B, and high E strings. And so this allows me to have a tighter low end of the spectrum of notes while still having some flexibility on the higher strings. Now, this isn't something that is unique. There's different kinds of strings for different purposes, and the more you know, the more able you are to utilize the options that you have available to you. So learn how to put strings on your own instrument. Tip number 3, clean your stuff. Not only clean it, but clean it the right way. I used to work in a music store, and I can't tell you the horrors that I've seen from people trying to clean their instrument, trying to polish their instruments, you know, things that are just...
I've seen some things, man, and some stuff. I wouldn't recommend it.
Just so everyone knows, just so everyone's on board with this, do not use furniture polish to clean your guitar. Don't use Pine Sol to clean your guitar. It's full of chemicals that are good for hardwood floors and for wood furniture. Terrible for your instrument. It's going to eat away at the wood that's on the fingerboard, and it's just going to make your guitar not a desirable instrument to have. So don't do it. There's cleaning products specifically made for bass and guitar. Typically you'll find that with cleaning the fretboard of your bass or your guitar, you're going to be using products like lemon oil in order to get into the crevices and to actually moisturize the wood so that it doesn't dry out and crack. When it comes to the body of your instrument, there's a series of different polishes out there that a plethora of different companies have available. So you have a whole myriad of options to choose from. None of them are Pine Sol. Do not use Pine Sol. And certainly don't use commercial cleaning products to clean your stuff. I remember I saw a kid who was using Windex to clean his guitar, and I could feel my heart start to tumble. Tip number 4, practice, but also know how to practice. When you're taking lessons, traditionally what happens is that your instructor gives you a list of assignments to work on, and you take them home to practice for X amount of time a day until the next time you see your instructor. This is all fine and good. However, you may find that one day you'll get to a certain level of skill that when you go to sit down and practice, you kind of fall into the same patterns that you've been following for X amount of time, or you just may not know what to do with that time that you have to practice. And so it's important to give yourself objectives. When it comes to practicing in general, it's good to have a sort of regimen, almost like a workout routine, to stick to and to vary up throughout your practice time between lessons. For me, when I was growing up, my main thing would be starting off with just running through scales, but also finding different places on the neck of the guitar where I could play those same scales. And then also taking those scale shapes that I now have internalized in my brain and just moving them up and down the neck of the guitar. Alternate picking everything and just making sure that everything sounds good. As you get better, your practice regimen is going to change, or at least it should change. You know, it shouldn't just be the same routine throughout the entire duration of time that you're doing music. It should grow with you. That's the only way you're going to grow. So make yourself some sort of practice regimen or ask your instructor to do that for you. Make sure to stick to it and just commit. Commit to it. Nothing but good can come from it. Tip number 5, play with a metronome. Now this one, a lot of my students, they hate it, and rightly so, because it's a rough one. I hated it when I was learning how to play guitar and bass. Now, this is something that you can incorporate into your practicing, but just in general, you should be playing with a metronome. And not just with a metronome set to 4/4, where the downbeat is always just going to be, and you're playing on top of that. You should try to vary up rhythmically what you're playing so that while you're still playing at the same tempo with the metronome, you're doing something different and you're training your brain to listen to different rhythmic patterns over that 4/4 tempo. It doesn't matter what instrument that you're practicing, whether it's guitar, bass, drums, piano, whatever. To have a metronome incorporated into your practicing is beneficial because when you go to record, guess what you're going to be recording to? You guessed it, a click track. A click track is a metronome. Get acquainted with it now, because if you ever want to double anything, if you ever want anything to be in sync with each other, you want to be able to play it in a uniform style. And it's only going to help you be more on track rhythmically in the long run. So just buckle down and do it. I know. I hate metronomes too. I know. Just do it. Now, tip number 6 is kind of geared mostly towards the guitar players out there. But yeah, tip number 6.
Slow down.
If I had $1 for every guitar student that I've had come in and is just trying to be the ultimate cup of noodles and is just trying to play everything 1,000 notes per second, I'd be able to pay off my student loans that are outstanding. What's important to keep in mind when you're learning someone else's piece or something that you've written yourself, the best way to get it really internalized for yourself is to play it slow. Play it slow, make sure that all your emotions and all your notes are fluent, that you're not flubbing over anything and that it's not sloppy, and it's only going to be beneficial in the grand scheme of things. I tell my students all the time, I'd rather you play slow and precise than fast and sloppy. So keep that in mind and slow down. It's not a race. I promise you it's not a race. Tip number 7, listen. This seems like kind of a no-brainer, but one of the most beneficial things you can do as a musician is to just listen. Now this one, it's important and it's kind of across the spectrum of instrumentation for everyone. At some point you're going to reach a level of experience and knowledge where you're going to kind of have this belief in your head of like, I got this figured out. And that's fine. But bear in mind that there's always going to be someone out there that knows more than you do. So always be ready and willing to listen to any advice that someone has to give to you. Even the bad advice. Don't internalize and execute your plans based off bad advice, but be mindful and aware of the people that are feeding you bad advice so that you don't fall victim to it. Sometimes people are just telling you things that they think are better for you because they think they know everything. And that just happens. It is what it is. But it's important to listen so that you know when you're being fed bad advice. It's also important to listen to know when you're being fed really, really useful information. You don't want to spend a whole bunch of time walking through life believing that you know everything just to find out years down the road that you don't know nothing. So it's beneficial to listen. In a smaller sense of the concept, listen to the people around you. Listen to the people that are your teachers. Listen to different kinds of music. Listen to the people that you're in a band with. If you don't value the opinion of the people that you're in a band with, you should probably get out of that band. Don't be that guy that's like,
I'm the leader of the band, I don't have to listen to you guys.
I don't have to follow everything you're trying to tell me. I got all the answers.
because you don't. If you had all the answers, you'd have a clone machine and you'd have a band of just yourself, and you wouldn't have to worry about other people getting fed up with your crap and leaving. So keep an ear out. It's also important to listen to other people that are within the same circle as you. So if you go out to a show and you see other bands that are playing, like sure, you might not know the band that's playing, but go and see what they're doing. They're probably doing something that you want to do or that you're trying to do, and they're already doing it way better than you can. So overall, open your ears. Tip number 8, take breaks. I like this tip because a lot of people kind of lose sight of the importance of having a break periodically from working on something, whether it be working with a study group in school, or working on learning a new song, or working on writing a new song, or working on whatever you're doing at rehearsal with your band. It's important to give yourself time to just not be completely focused, to sort of decompress for a moment and give yourself the time to kind of recollect yourself, recollect your energy, and then go back into what you're doing. Because you don't want to get to a point of absolute fatigue where you're still doing what you're focused on, but you're not doing it very well because you've mentally exhausted yourself. So give yourself time away. It's okay. As long as your time away is not forever, it's fine. Certainly, time is precious and thoughts are fleeting. Sometimes you want to write something down or play something while it's still in your head, and that's absolutely fine. But don't drive yourself completely into a burnout over trying to get something completed right now. Now, if you procrastinated till the very last day of a deadline, and now you're like in full force, gotta get this done mode, I mean, you did that to yourself. Now it's not an ideal time for a break. So I guess we could say tip 8.5, plan ahead. Tip number 9 is strictly for guitar and bass. Play the guitar. Don't let the guitar play you. This might sound like some open-ended Mr. Miyagi sort of stuff, but in reality it's actually a pretty straightforward concept. A lot of what kind of clarity you get from your instrument, the precision from the notes that you're playing, it comes from how you're presenting yourself, how you're composing yourself and holding your instrument, but also the confidence that you're putting into how you're playing the instrument. If you're slumped back in your chair and you got your guitar sitting kind of on your stomach and so now it's sagging down to your lap, this isn't a very good way to play the guitar, and it's going to give you more work to have to work around in order to get what you want from it. So you want to make sure that you're sitting in a proper posture so that you are the one in control, not the guitar. Additionally, when you're actually going to play the notes on the guitar or the bass or any instrument really, play the notes with conviction. Don't play the instrument that you have in front of you as if like it just fell down in front of you just now and you're trying to figure out what to do with it. Play it like you know what you're doing. When you're playing whatever instrument you're on, if you're playing it in a timid sort of way, it's going to be very apparent to whomever can hear it. So approach your instrument with confidence, and it'll actually make it easier for you to play it in the long run. So here we are, tip number 10. And tip number 10 might ruffle some feathers, but it's the truth. Music is fun, but music is also a craft. So treat it as such. Now what I mean by that is that music is fun. Playing music is fun. Frankly, if you're not having fun playing music, then maybe you shouldn't be doing it. And that's okay too. But the truth is that there is an academic aspect to playing music and playing music well. Even if you're a noise artist or something that would be less considered music by a lot of people, there's still a thought process and a practice that goes into honing that craft. So you need to treat it as such. You can't go and buy yourself an instrument, never practice it, go to pick it up, expect to be a virtuoso at it, and then be bummed when you're not. That's just not how it works. You gotta put work in order to see progress be made. So take these tips, incorporate them into your playing, into your practicing, into your life. And it's only gonna benefit you as an artist and as a human being overall. So yes, have fun playing music, but also go into it with an objective in mind. Cooking's fun too, but if you don't follow the recipe and you're just throwing ingredients into a pot, you're not necessarily going to like the results that you get in the end. It's better to follow the recipe, or at least have a general game plan going into what you're doing or what you're trying to accomplish in terms of music. So something to keep in mind. Hopefully this list of tips you found to be beneficial. I found for me that a lot of this stuff was beneficial, and it's stuff that I had to learn along the way. You know, when it comes to music and making a career in music, you're gonna find that you're gonna run into lots of different kinds of people, lots of different scenarios. You know, it's good to be mindful about how to address all of them. You don't know what the future holds for you in terms of music. You could find yourself in a position like me. I never thought I'd become a music teacher in my wildest dreams. And then one day, that was just a job that I found that I felt most satisfied doing. And with getting that job, it made me really realize that, like, I gotta make sure that I have all my stuff in order. And so I went home and I just started drilling every exercise and relearning every scale I've ever learned, every mode, everything I could. I was trying to just recollect that knowledge. All these tips are geared towards helping you be successful in music, regardless of where music takes you. Whether you get a teaching job, whether you get a job playing with some band, whether you're a studio musician, whatever the case. But it's all beneficial, and it's all good information for not just you and your musical endeavors, but also just in general in life. You know, it's worthwhile to be mindful of your surroundings and, you know, take in whatever information you can. If you like what I do here, please consider helping me out over at my Patreon page. There's benefits for different tiers over there. And, you know, it benefits me because it helps me have a lot easier time making these videos for you guys. So, something to consider. In addition, if you haven't already, you should go and give me a follow over at my Instagram and my Twitter, because I've been posting over there a lot more frequently lately, and I'm trying to do mini covers of songs on a regular basis that I've been posting to Instagram. One of the best ways to go and find that stuff is to go over and give me a follow, so you should go and do that. Other than that, guys, that's all I got for you for now. Like I said, lessons are coming, so be on the lookout. But otherwise, I'll see you guys next time. Stay safe, keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next one.